So let's get started. Welcome to the Developer Summit, this being the first track, first session. Thanks for coming. The session I'm presenting is called Distributed Workflows in ArcGIS, and my name is Gary Mathogel. So in this session, we're going to talk about techniques for distributing data and syncing with ArcGIS. The common thread through all the demos and most of what I'm presenting is the feature service sync capability. We're going to go through and review the present and past technologies that we've had. And then we're going to go into some demos. In the demos, we'll talk about distributed collaboration. We'll talk about taking a map offline with ArcGIS Pro. We'll also talk about Collector for ArcGIS and making use of map areas with the new collector. And then we'll have a couple of slides on what's coming to kind of give you guys a sneak peek on what we're working on. All of these sessions have deeper dives, more focused sessions that are later in the conference. And I'll have links to those at the end on some slides. So I had a little bit of fun putting this slide together. This is kind of the progression of releases and milestones that we've had for the Geodatabase replication and the sync capability within our products. So starting in 2003, way back on E3, we released disconnected editing in ArcGIS Desktop. That allowed you to take your enterprise geodatabase data, check it out, make edits, and then check it in. If you wanted to do more, you had to recheck out, make edits, check in again. And then in 2006 at 9.2, we released Geodatabase replication, and we kind of relabeled it from disconnected editing to Geodatabase replication and introduced one-way and two-way replication. And then between 2006 and 2014, I don't have any milestones listed, but we kind of regularly improved the added enhancements to that platform. So we added Geodata services and the ability to sync those, one-way child to parent replication, schema synchronization tools, and so forth. But then in 2014, with the release of 10.2.1, we released the feature service sync capability, and along with it, we released Collector for ArcGIS. And together, you were then able to take feature service published data offline in the field on a mobile device and sync it. Now, in addition to that, we also supported sync on hosted feature services, hosted feature layers, as well as feature services running on top of your enterprise geodatabase. And we introduced the concept of non-versioned archiving. So for the first time with that release, you didn't have to version your data. Up until then, you had to version your data in order to use these offline workflows. Now you didn't have to. You just had to archive it. Later that year, in 2014, we released some enhancements on top of sync. So we started to support two-way synchronization with version data. Initially, we only supported one-way with version data. And then we also added support for sync on hosted feature services in enterprise. And then in 2017, with the 10.5.1 release, we released distributed collaboration. And that was for the first time allowing you to take two enterprises and keep them in sync via the feature service sync API. And later in 2017, we released Pro 2.1, and that's where we, for the first time in Pro, allowed you to take data offline from a feature service. And then in 2019 and 10.7, which is just about to be released, we're releasing sync on top of branch versioning, which now is also supported. And we are releasing this map areas option within your maps in online and enterprise. Okay, so in order to use feature services in sync, you need to enable the feature service sync capability. So you do that during publishing. So during your publishing process, in the screenshot on the upper right, you'll have an enable sync option when you're publishing your feature services. Now, say you forgot to enable sync. Well, that's okay. You can still enable it afterwards. If you're using hosted feature layers in online and enterprise, you just go into the item page and check enable sync. If you're using feature service running on top of your enterprise geodatabase, then you go into the ArcGIS Server Manager, go to the capabilities list, and enable sync. Now, there are certain data requirements for sync to work. If you're using hosted feature layers in online and enterprise, you don't have to worry about it. Just hit sync, hit save. It goes in the back end, configures the data how it needs to be. Adds global IDs, enables archiving, whatever it needs to do. And to you just use it, you're good to go. But if you're running a feature service on top of an enterprise geodatabase, you're managing the data, so you need to configure it appropriately. So the requirements are the data has to have a global ID column, and it has to be either versioned, non-versioned with archiving, or branch version starting in 10.7. All the layers in your data set have to be one of those, in your feature service have to be one of those. And also if you've got relationship classes, and this includes attachments, the primary key can't be based on the object ID column. It must be based on some other column. And if you have that, we've got a geoprocessing tool you can just run, and it'll switch it to be object ID based to global ID based. These configuration options are really painless and easy to set. You see on the screenshot on the right, you just right-click on the data set, choose Manage, and then you can add global IDs or enable registers version or enable archiving, whatever you need to do. So once you have your feature service and you have sync enabled and you're ready to start using it, there's more configuration options you can do in the feature service to fine-tune the experience of the offline editor. So the first thing you can do is you can say, well, I only want my offline editors to have reference data. I don't want them to make any edits. I just want them to know where the features are in the field. For that, you could just enable query and sync, and then when they take the data offline, when they sync, it only comes down to their device. You can also set up a subset of capabilities. So if I got collectors in the field, I don't want them creating new features, deleting existing features. I just want them setting updates on existing features to set some status as a result of their inspection. So I can just limit it to update and sync and query, and then that'll be respected when you take the data offline. I can go even further. Not only do I not want them to create or delete features, I also want them to only update certain attributes. So within my map, I can set some fields to be editable, some not to be editable. And I can make, from the feature service, I can set an option that says, don't make any geometry updates. So the guy in the field won't move those features. They can just click on it, set some attributes. And in my example, I've actually set up both of those things that you'll see in a bit later in my demos. In addition to that, feature service has other settings. You can enable editor tracking, ownership-based access control. You can have relationship classes, time settings. All of that works well online as well as offline. Now, on top of feature service settings, you can also fine-tune the experience by the use of hosted feature service view. So if you're using hosted feature services, you can create a view. And within the view, you can, as the author, restrict what features are exposed to the view. So I can only make certain attributes visible. I can set up attribute filters that only make certain features visible. And I can also set up area of interest, so a spatial constraint that only makes certain features visible within that extent. So I can set all that up as an author on my view, such that consumers won't even know that features outside that extent or those cert fields exist. And that is also respected when you take data offline. None of those things that you set in the view will come offline. They'll be applied. In fact, you can apply further criteria on top of those baked-in criteria. There's also web map settings. So if you're using Collector for ArcGIS, you need to have a web map to take data offline. And the web map itself has some offline settings. So one of them is the ability to control what features get downloaded. So you can say, I got guys collecting in the field, they don't need everybody else's attachments because they're big and they're bulky, they take a long time to download. I just want them to download feature updates only and upload any attachments that they add. Or maybe I don't even want feature updates to be downloaded. I only want them to make whatever edits they're making in the field and just upload only. I can configure those settings in the map. And of course, I can also set up map areas, which I'll demo later and talk about more later. Okay, so the Geodatabase has added quite a few enhancements the last couple of releases in 10.6 and 10.7. And this slide is all about how do those work with the sync capability. So the first thing to talk about is sync with branch versioning. We've added support for that in 10.7. So you can take your branch version data offline. One thing to note, though, we only support the default version. We don't support taking named versions offline. It's something we're looking at, but it's not there yet. Also note that the feature service sync capability also copies data in a simple features model only right now. So if you've got utility networks, contingent values, attribute rules, annotation dimension layers, those are excluded if you attempt to take them offline. Now that's just for now. We're working on adding support for those over the coming releases, but currently that's the limitation. But there's still use here. If you want data in the field for reference, you got it. You don't need to have the utility network. You're not going to do a trace potentially if you just want reference features. Or if you're doing inspections, do you need contingent values or attribute rules? Yeah, that'd be nice, but maybe they're not needed for the types of things you need to do. So there's still use here, but we're building on this area. So with that said, it's a simple features model. Things still work fine, even with all these settings. So take, for example, attribute rules. Say, for example, if you look at the graphic on the right, I've got an enterprise geodatabase, I've got a feature service, and I've got a mobile device that I've taken offline. In the mobile device, I make some edits. I set a value and I call sync. Now say that's collector. Collector is going to do a bidirectional sync if that's allowed. So in a bidirectional sync, the first thing that happens is your edits get uploaded to the database. Now in this case, I'm setting a equal to 10 prime on my upload. That gets applied to the geodatabase. Now say there's a calculate rule in there, and the calculate rule says set column B equal to the value of column A. When that A gets applied, column B will then get set to be 10 prime as well. And then on the download part of the sync, which always happens after the upload, B equal to 10 prime will be downloaded to the mobile device automatically, and you're completely in sync. So the results of that calculation rule kick in. Now for constraint rules, they will error. So if you have a per layer model and you make an edit in the field that violates a constraint rule, that feature will be skipped, and a message will be logged to the logs, and a result will be returned to the client saying it was skipped. If it's a per replica type, it'll fail to sync. Because you're putting those rules in there to protect the data, you don't want someone accidentally making those changes, even if it's from a collector. In 10.7, we've added additional attribute rule types called validation rules and batch calculate rules. Those are passive rules, so you can make edits, those get applied, and that'll update the status of the row that gets changed to say needs validation. And then later you go in, you run the validation, and you correct the features. So takeaways there, there's some limitations right now. We're working through those, including like support for some of these more advanced types, and also support for taking named branch versions offline. Okay, so let's go into some demos. So I'm going to go through a series of demos and kind of go through a mini workflow. So what I'm going to do is, I've got an ArcGIS Enterprise and an ArcGIS Online organization, and I'm going to use distributed collaboration to take some feature service data from my enterprise and have it go upload it to my ArcGIS Online account. Now say, for example, in this case, I'm doing hydrant inspections. I want that inspection information available to online, where I can build maps and maybe show people hydrants that are out of service or damaged in damage areas and that sort of thing. So it's really nice to be able to upload that up to my ArcGIS Online account and share it. But at the same time, I want to manage my data within my enterprise. So then I want to send my field workers out. Potentially, they're going to make edits in Pro and sync those in, or they're going to use collector for ArcGIS and map areas, take data offline, make edits and sync those in. And then all of that can be synced up to the ArcGIS Online account through distributed collaboration. Okay, so distributed collaboration, what is it? It's a way to share and synchronize data across ArcGIS. Distributed collaboration means that you're making separate copies. So if it's just collaboration, there's one copy running, everything references it. Distributed collaboration, you have separate copies, meaning if my enterprise goes down, online will still show the data because it's a separate copy. And that's what we're going to show here. When you set up collaboration, it can be between an ArcGIS Enterprise and an ArcGIS Online organization, or between two enterprise sites. With distributed collaboration, we support a one-way sync model. So you're always uploading from a source to a target. And it's always full extent. So all the data in your feature service will get distributed. The source can be any feature service. It could be one running on top of your enterprise geodatabase that's versioned or archived or branch versioned, or it could be hosted. But the target on the other end will always be a read-only hosted feature layer. All right, so let's kind of take a step down. I did this graphic to kind of give you guys a mental picture of what's going on behind the scenes when you do distributed collaboration. So say I set up a collaboration between my enterprise and online. What that's going to do is it's going to create at least one workspace. In my demo, I use one workspace. A workspace has an associated group within your org. And then you can add features, you add items to your group, and that'll be shared through the collaboration. So say you add a feature service to your group. That'll tell distributed collaboration, hey, I need to make a copy of this feature service. If it's sync enabled, what it'll do is it'll create a replica, call create replica, and generate a SQL mobile geodatabase. And it'll generate a replica that's of type server that has a download only direction. Then that mobile geodatabase gets uploaded to the online site and published. The content of it is published from the mobile geodatabase. And then as part of that publishing process, it registers a server type replica that's upload. So now you've got sort of a replica pair. You've got a replica on the enterprise, a replica on the online site, and they have directions set to them. So if I make edits in my enterprise, the distributed collaboration has the schedule sync built in. That kicks off. It'll sync all those edits up to online. And with that, let's do a demo. Okay, so what I have here is a machine running on Amazon. And on the machine is an ArcGIS Enterprise full stack setup. I also have Pro. And I also have an Enterprise Geodatabase running on top of SQL Server. So in this map, I'm connected to my Enterprise SQL Server Geodatabase. Here's the connection here. And this is hydrant inspection information. So I want to set up a feature service that I then want my guys in the field to take offline and do inspections. So I've got 3 different rendering settings here. I've got assigned, I've got completed, and I've got unassigned. So imagine those to be settings that I want to tell my guys what to do. So you can see in the upper right, I've already done a bunch of completed hydrant inspections. It's in red. I'm currently working on the lower right, sorry. Which are all assigned, and then eventually I'm going to work through all these unassigned ones. Now, to make this workflow work, I've got to publish this service. So before I publish it, remember this is an enterprise geodatabase that I manage. For some reason, Pro is hanging up on me right now, and it's being slow. Let me just try to refresh the thing. What I did is I enabled the data for sync. So to do that, I had to right-click on the data set and add global ID column, which I did, and also enable archiving on it. This is a non-version archive-enabled data. Also notice I have attachment table, so there's attachments associated with this data. Now I've also published a second service based on these notes layers, just so that I can have guys make redline notes in the field as they work. Okay, so to publish this, what I did is I picked share, and I said web layer. Now right now, Pro is kind of frozen on me for some reason. And what I may do is just minimize it. It's freezing up on me. So basically what I did is I published the service, and I did that by choosing share as web layer, and then I published the content with update only, feature access, sync, and I also said allow geometry updates equal to false. So when my guys in the field work with this data, they'll only be able to do attribute updates. Okay, so let me just close that guy down. Suddenly my machine is not behaving. Kind of freezing on me here. All right, let me try reconnecting here for a second. Just one moment. Just let me log in here. All right, so I'm reconnecting. Okay, so it's back, but it's still pretty slow here for some reason. I am. Yeah. Let me see. This was working perfectly before. The famous last words of a presenter. Okay, so what I can do is, I do have a video I can play, because that is not coming back on me. So I can actually play a video of the demo for you guys. Yeah, I'm just going to bring it up and then I'll bring the slide. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so I'm starting in the demo. So let's take a step back and I'll just talk through what's going on here. So basically, again, I have data from an enterprise geodatabase that I've added to my map, and I'm going to publish that as a feature service because I want my guys to go offline and do my hydrant inspection demo. So you can see that I'm currently connected to my enterprise geodatabase, and then I can right-click on the data sets and I can enable the capabilities I need to enable. So I'm going to choose Add Global IDs, and I've also enabled archiving on the data. So this is archive-enabled data. And notice also I've got an attachment table. So this is going to have attachments. And then I've got those 3 additional layers, which I'm going to publish separately as a notes layer that I'm going to use in one of my offline maps with Collector. Okay, so to actually make this a feature service, what I need to do is I need to share it as a web layer. And right now I'm just kind of showing you the data that I have and how it's set up, how I've got the 3 different categories. And then in the video, I'm going to go and you'll see that the assigned areas, I'm going to be working in that Naperville Country Club section on the right there as part of my presentation. And then and go from there. Okay, so in the video, the next thing I want to do is to show that I'm connected to my enterprise connection, my Deb Summit Gary site, enterprise site. And then I'm going to show sharing. So I'm going to click the share button, and I'm going to choose share as a web layer. And that'll bring up my sharing API. I need to set a summary and tags. I'm going to enable feature capability because I want to publish a feature service. Then I'm going to make it enable sync. And I'm also going to enable it to be update features only. And then I'm also going to uncheck the allow geometry updates checkbox. And then I'm going to publish that guy. So I've already published it, so I'm not going to kind of go through the process of publishing as part of the demo. But if I were to publish it, I would analyze and then click publish. So next I'm going to go into my enterprise. And so to do that, I first got to go in there. And you'll see that I've got a couple of browsers open. One of them has my ArcGIS online site. The other one has my enterprise location. So I'm going to click on the enterprise location. And I'm going to go to the contents page. Within the contents page, I'm going to show you the data. There's my hydrants demo data that I just published. And if we open it up, you'll take a look at it, and you'll see it looks pretty much identical to what it was in Pro. So we preserved all of the rendering and all that information with the map. So I want to take this data, and I want to share it via distributed collaboration. So to do that, what I can do is I can go to my organization page and go to my collaboration tab. So I'm going to set up kind of like a side-by-side view so you can see my enterprise on the left and you'll see online on the right. And I'm going to go to my settings page. Now you've got to do this collaboration setup as a administrator. So in both cases, I'm logged in as an administrator. Okay, so I'm going to go to Home, and then I'm going to go to Organization. And then within that, I'm going to go to my Settings tab. And then I'm going to check on collaborations. Now you'll notice I have a collaboration already set up. And my and on the left side, my enterprise is a guest. If I go to my online account on the right, and I go to Settings, same location, you'll see that my collaboration is set up there as well. In this case, it's a host. So I've pre-created this collaboration. But to show you how I set it up, I'll go through the steps here in the demo. So to set it up, if you have ArcGIS Online, you've always got to use ArcGIS Online as the host. So it starts with Online. So you click Create Collaboration. When you click that button, you then give it a name. In this case, I'm going to call it Test Collab. And you've got to give it a description. And then you've got to give it a workspace name. Every collaboration has to have a workspace. And a workspace has with it a group and a schedule. So you got to give it a name and a description, and then you've got to either pick an existing group or type in the name of a new group that you're going to create. So in this case, I created a new group. And of course, you have to give everything tags. Hit next. In this case, I wanted to do copies if possible, right? Because I want to do distributed collaboration. So I'm going to choose the copies if possible choice. And then I'm going to click Save and Invite. So what that will do is it'll first ask me to provide the URL to the organization that I want to collaborate with. In this case, I'm picking the enterprise, pasting it in. And I want to send content from enterprise to online, so I'm going to choose Send Content as my option. And then I'm going to click Save. And that'll save a file called an invite file. And in this case, it just puts it in the my browser's download folder, which I can then access on the enterprise side and accept the invitation. So I'm going to pick that invitation from the list of files and say OK. And then just save it. And then once that's done, it then asks me to send a response back to the online organization. So that'll create a response file, put it at the same location. I'll go back to online, and then I accept the guest. And once this is completed, the handshake's completed, and I have my collaboration established. So now these two are set up to collaborate with one another. The last thing that needs to happen is that on the guest side, I need to choose which groups, which workspaces I want to participate in. I could have shared multiple workspaces. In this case, I just have one. So I'm going to choose to join that workspace, this test collab workspace that we created. So I'm going to choose Join Workspace. And it's at that point that you create the associated group on the enterprise side. So I already created a group on the online side when the collaboration was first set up. Now I'm establishing a group on the enterprise side. And of course, I want to choose copies. Here I can configure the schedule. By default, I think it's every hour. And my collaboration is complete. So now with that completed, I'm pretty much at the stage I was at the beginning with the other collaboration. Set it up, it's configured, and now I can start sharing content in my enterprise that I want to have participate in the collaboration. So to share content, what you got to do is you got to go to your content, and you just got to share with that group that's tied to the collaboration. So I'm going to check on my hydrants demo data. I'm going to choose Share with my collab guest group, which is my collaboration group. And then once I do that, then that hydrant demo service is then in the collaboration, and it's sent up to the online account. So if I go to my groups, you'll see that I have my collab guest group. And if I open that guy up, you'll see that it contains the hydrant demos data, which I can open up and take a look at. If I go to the online side and I go to my groups, and I click on the group on the online side, just called collab, you'll see that it also has the hydrant demo data. So that was copied up to the online side. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to go in and I want to make some edits on the enterprise side, because remember, I'm sending from enterprise up to online. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to zoom into this Naperville location, Naperville Country Club location. I'm just going to click on one of the hydrants when I get there, and I'm going to make an edit. First, I'm going to go to the online side and kind of show you the corresponding data, and you'll see that the data sets match up. Right, so it's in a direct copy. You'll notice that everything looks the same. So if I go on the enterprise side now, and I make an edit, I click a feature, and I'm just going to change an attribute that'll change the rendering, make it really obvious what the edit is. Then I've now got an edit that's pending and ready to be synced up. And I can make a whole bunch of edits, and then it'll be synced whenever the sync process kicks off for the collaboration. but I can also force it to do the sync. So to do that, I go into the collaboration page, and I go back to that same settings location under collaborations, and I click on my collaboration. I go into the group, and the guest in this case always initiates the synchronization, so I can call sync workspace, and that'll force the sync to happen right away. While that's happening, I can set up an auto refresh on the online side. So you'll see that when the sync completes, you'll see the edits come into the online side. So in a couple of seconds, that the features on the online side will start to flash because it's auto refreshing, and you'll see that the sync completed. So it actually uploaded and synced the information into the online side. If you go to the collaboration tab, you'll have information on when the last sync happened, if it succeeded, and when the next one is scheduled. So that's portal collaboration. Is that making sense to everybody? Yeah. Right. I'm sorry? Can you send it to multiple destinations? So the question is, can you send it to multiple destinations? You can set up collaborations from one site to multiple sites, yes. But they're separate collaborations. Yeah.
The collaboration in ArcGIS line, it's all published and posted feature layer.
Correct. They're completely separate.
Can you screw up the schema, the settings of the item page?
Yep. So if you change the schema of the different data sets, the sync is made to be tolerant of that. So you've dropped a column, it'll sync and skip that column. It'll do things like that. Yeah. If you go too far, you'll probably start to get weird results, but it's pretty tolerant. All right. So let me keep rolling along here.
Is two-way sync coming?
Question is two-way sync coming? Yeah, that's something that we have on the docket, but it's not there yet. Okay, so then for the next demo, I'm going to work with downloading maps with ArcGIS Pro. In ArcGIS Pro, you've got commands to take feature service layers offline. We added it in 2.1. Once the data is offline in Pro, you can disconnect Pro from the network, make edits, come back, connect, and sync again. It supports multiple bidirectional syncs. So once you take it off once, you can sync it multiple times. It's not a check-in, check-in, check-out, check-in model. It also uses the feature service sync capability, and it stores the data while offline in a mobile geodatabase. That mobile geodatabase can be accessed and edited directly in Pro. And then when you're done, you can click a button and it'll switch the reference from the mobile geodatabase back to the live service again. So let me see if I can demo that. What I might do, I have a video for that as well, if all else fails, but let me just see what's going on here. Is this guy still kind of slow? Or it still seems pretty unresponsive? If I close that. I'll just restart it here. Yeah, this machine just seems to be really slow for some reason. Okay, so maybe what I can do is access it from here. So I'm running Pro on my laptop. And I'll see if I can access that site from here. And if that fails, then I can always just show you the video as well. All right, let me sign in here just a second. And this is accessing the data, so if that machine is having issues, then maybe it'll just be slow. Okay, let's see. All right, so I'm going to sign in. See if it can't connect. Okay. Let me just flip it over here so I won't show you guys my password.
That's a lack of trust.
Let's see. All right, flip it back. And I am connected. Cool. All right, so this is the data that's actually running on the enterprise in my on that Amazon machine. So I can right-click on this and say Add to New Map. So what I'm adding right now is that hydrant inspection data for the Naperville area. So what I can do is I can zoom in to say the country club location, which is what we've been using. And I can zoom out a bit. So this is actually hitting the feature service. If I right-click on the layer properties and I go to source, you'll see that it's hitting a URL to my feature service. Now you'll notice this download map button here is enabled. That means that I can take this data offline. So I'm going to click download and have it kick off a download session. So it's packaging up all that data on that enterprise Amazon machine, downloading the mobile geodatabase. And once that's completed, it'll download it onto the device and switch all references in the map to reference that mobile data. So let's see if that kicks off and works. It's taking it a minute here. Just having issues with that Amazon machine, which is odd because it was working fine just before the demo.
Maybe it's just a bad internet connection.
I think the internet seems okay. It's just the machine itself, when I'm logged into it, is just slow. So like if the internet was a problem, I probably wouldn't be able to do even work at all with this thing.
But usually that's a big bandwidth, even with the connection.
Yeah, so there's something else happening, maybe heavy usage on the network that's causing an issue. Okay, so maybe what I can do is, if this is going to take some time, I'll show you guys the video, and I can just skip to this portion of the video that I've already showed you to save a bit of time. Okay. So we showed you that. Look at the data. And go to properties, source. Okay, so I'm looking at the feature service data. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the map and I'm going to click download map. Click download. And that'll download the map onto the mobile device. So you'll notice this is how long it should have taken when everything's working fine. So now the data is offline, and I know it's offline because I can right-click on the layer or go to the source, and you'll see that it's referencing a mobile geodatabase. So now I can make edits, and when I'm making edits, it's now going to happen to that local mobile geodatabase. I zoomed out, so you can tell that it's only taken what I zoomed into offline. So there's more data than that, but because I zoomed in, it's using that as the extent to define what to take offline. All right, so I can go into the editor, and I can select the feature. And then I can go in and I can set some attributes. So I'm going to do something really obvious. I'm just going to select a feature, and I'm just going to change its type to be completed. And I'll add an attachment as well, because this data has attachment information. So once that's added, the attachment's there. The data is saved automatically as soon as I say yes when I close that window, and I'm ready to sync. So to sync, I just go to the, actually in this case, I'm going to make an edit as well in the enterprise. So I'm going to go back to the enterprise. I'm going to open up that map, and I'm going to make a separate edit just to show you that it's a bidirectional sync. In this case, I'm editing a feature, the lower part of the data set. So I'm going to set it to be, something else that's obvious. It's going to change it to a blue color. So you know that the sync's successful when you see that feature come in. So I hit sync, and that's enabled, that sync command, because I took the data offline. And now you'll see that blue feature is going to come down into my local map. So I came back to the office, plugged in, hit sync. I'm now up to date. I can go back out and do more work. At the same time, if I look at my web map with my data, you'll see that it, actually I need to refresh the map. You'll see that edit I made to the hydrant at the top left-hand corner of the country club, that actually was edited, and my attachment came across, and there it is. So that's taking data offline in Pro. When I'm done, I can just go back into Pro, and I click the Remove button, which is at the right-hand side of the taskbar. So I go back into my map. Actually, in this case, I did one more edit, and I was able to sync that again, right, to show you that I can do multiple synchronizations. And that'll show up in my web map as well. So you see that guy, I changed it to a blue color, and it will now show up. Sorry, I changed it to a red color, and it'll now show up in my web map. Okay, so when I'm done, what I can do is I can remove the map. It asks me, do I want to do one final synchronization? In this case, I don't want to do it because I'm done. And it'll then take that local mobile geodatabase and remove it and switch my reference back to my service. As you can see, that's in the map. It's back in the service.
If you did have somebody add the same feature in the mobile database and the enterprise database, would it just be the last edited?
Yes, so the question is if the same feature was edited in both, it'd be the last edit wins. Yes. Yep.
The mobile database part of the ArcGIS Pro project.
Yes, the mobile database will be part of the project. You'll see it listed there.
Can it be reused, or does it delete itself and then recreate upon next download?
When you have to remove it before you download again. When you hit the remove button, it'll delete it. Yeah. Okay.
It just went away. You showed, did you remove it or did it just go away?
The mobile geodatabase, when you hit the remove button, what it'll do is it'll delete the local mobile geodatabase, and it'll switch the references of all the layers back to your service. So you're back in live mode.
Can I edit the mobile geodatabase with some other tool?
Question is, can you edit the mobile geodatabase with some other tools? You can edit it in Pro as you saw. That'll totally work. But that's probably the only client other than Collector, which also edits it in the offline workflows.
Or could you make a copy of it?
You could make a copy of it, yes. Yeah.
So you could.
You could.
That way you could persist it if you wanted.
If you wanted to, yes. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, so let me move on to the next demo. So I'm going to talk about Collector for ArcGIS. So if you go to the App Store and you go into Collector, you'll see if you've got an iOS 11 or higher operating system running on your iOS device, you'll see two collectors listed. You'll see one called Collector and one called Collector Classic. Collector is the new collector that we just released in the last few months. You definitely want to download that if you can. Collector Classic is the original collector that we've had for years that's also available. And it'll work on older iOS systems. The new collector has some really nice features. So it supports now the pre-planned map areas. I can create these pre-planned areas, and then I can access them and take them offline in Collector. I also have a new editing user experience. So in Collector, especially for lines and polygons, you can get really accurate, and it works really well. Hopefully I can show you guys that. And then it also has some nice options, like you can sync the Collector map while it's open. You don't have to close it. And you can also schedule the synchronization to happen however often you want automatically. The new Collector has two modes, on-demand and pre-planned. On-demand is the classic way it always has worked, where you open the map, zoom to a location, set what you want the resolution of the base map to be, and hit download. The pre-planned one allows you to have someone author the map with pre-planned areas in the back end. Those get listed, and they all have a name, so you pick the one you want to take offline. You click it, it comes offline, and then you're good to go. To set up map areas in online and enterprise, you go into the map, and then you click Settings, and then in Settings you click, go to the Map Area section, and you say Manage Areas. Then it'll give you an interactive experience where you can define the location, the name, the resolution of the base map, and how often you want that cached information, right, that you're setting up with the pre-planned area to be refreshed and updated. So let's take a look a little bit deeper at what's going on when you do that. So I'm going in, I'm setting up a map area in my map. What that does is it creates a map area item in my enterprise or online. And then that item will have associated with it a mobile geodatabase that gets created as a replica from the feature service within my map. It'll also bake some map tiles. Both of those are associated with my map area. So when a mobile user comes along with Collector or a custom map, and they choose to download the map areas, it'll actually just download that content. It's really quick. It's just a download. There's no create replica call. There's no processing on the server. And then it'll go and it'll register a new replica based on the existing replica in that mobile geodatabase. Once that replica is registered, right, based on the reference replica, that information gets downloaded and that gets updated on that local mobile device. So now that mobile device has its own unique replica. In this case, I call it replica 1. That's completely independent of the original replica. From that point forward, you're where you've always been before. You've got a unique independent replica that you can sync on demand whenever you want. That map area can go away in the enterprise and you're still good to go. So then when the synchronizations happen, it's going to happen on that replica 1 replica. All right, so demos. Let me see if I can demo the map areas. I might just go straight to the video because this thing seems to be hanging up on me. And we're running low on time. So I'll play the map areas video. Okay, so basically what's happening here is I'm going into my hydrant map. So I created this hydrant map. It's got my the data we've been using all along, the hydrant demo layer, as well as some editable layers called notes that you can use to make red line types of notes in the field when you're making observations as an inspector. And I also have a world street map that I've baked into the map. So what I can do is I can go into settings and I can go to my manage areas section. Because it's got syncable feature layers in it, this will be enabled. And I can go in and click on that and set up my map areas. So to set up a map area, I've got one already pre-created. What you do is you just drag a box and then it'll package it up, give it a name. And to show you how that was done, I'm actually going to go to the left side of the data set, the west section of my data, and I'm going to create a new one. So to do it, you first go in and you drag a map area. So you click the box and you drag a map area. And that'll ask you for a name, which you can just type in. I recommend giving it a pretty good unique name. And then it'll also ask you for resolution of your base map. In this case, I'm going to go with the defaults. And then scheduling. So you can do it daily, you can do it weekly, or you can do it monthly by default. And once that's set up, it's going to kick off a packaging process. So what the packaging process is doing is it's going in and it's creating those replicas and those mobile geodatabases and caching them. And it's also packaging up those base maps. So this is running you can kind of click on that packaging button and get a rough status. I like to kind of toggle back and forth to see how it's going. And it'll eventually complete and you'll see the contents of the package. If you guys are familiar with the sharing API, you can also go into the sharing API and see all these things. You can see the mobile geodatabase packages, the base map packages, the map area packages, and they all have relationships between them. So there it is at the end. You'll see that I have 2 mobile geodatabases, right? Because I've got the notes and the hydrants demo. They're 2 separate services. There's 2 separate mobile geodatabases. And I've got the base maps. So that's now all set to, as a map area to be taken offline. Okay, so let me switch it to the collector demo. So I'll jump into collector now. And the first thing I want to do is show you guys what things look like in the App Store. So I'm going to go to the App Store. And I'm going to search for the word collector. And it's going to show me 2 collectors. Collector Classic, which is the old one, the original, and Collector for ArcGIS, which is the new one, the one you want to download. And then you see it's on my device because the open button is there. So I'm going to open that guy up, and I'm going to show you some features of the new collector. So here's the new collector. And you can see my hydrant demo map is there. If I click on my profile, you can see there's some settings in there like photo size, streaming, all those sorts of things. I'm actually connected right now to, in this case, to my enterprise. So when I click on that hydrant demo map, you'll see there's a little arrow to the right. Once I click on that, you'll see that it shows the 2 map areas, the west side one I just created and the country club one that was pre-created before the demo. And I've got the cloud with the down arrow, meaning that they're ready to be taken offline. So I can go in and I can use neither of those, interactively just zoom into a location and click download area. This is similar to the classic collector experience where you pick areas on demand. But in this case, I want to take advantage of the pre-planned area. So I'm going to click on the country club map, and that's going to come offline. So you see that it's kicked off this offline process, and boom, it's done. So all that did is download and register 2 replicas, and it's completed. So it's really nice. You can actually have that happen for many, many different people in your office, and it'll be just as fast because it's so lightweight on the server. So then when you open the map, you'll see that the map area location, I only see data that was in the location I took offline. And now I can start making local edits. So I can come in and I can start doing some hydrant inspections. And to do that, I'll click on a hydrant feature in the video here. So first I'll kind of pan over. Actually, the first thing you'll notice is that the first thing you want to think about is this data may not be totally up to date because it's pre-cached. So maybe the first thing I want to do is call sync as soon as I get it and get the very latest. So what I did in this demo here is I clicked on that sync button on the upper right-hand corner of the map, and I clicked sync. And now I've got the latest information on my map. Now I'm ready to collect. So I'm going to go in and collect. I tap a feature. I can then go to my photo library or take a picture and attach a feature. And I can also go in and make some edits to the attributes. In this case, I'm going to set it to be completed. So it'll turn red. And I'm going to submit that feature once I'm done with these changes. Now say this hydrant was damaged and I wanted to give some indication of what area around the hydrant was affected by the damage. I can use that redlining layer that I added to actually drop a point down, click the Collect Here button, and then pick my notes areas and draw an area around it. Now notice there's no hydrants listed here. That's because hydrants are update only. So it's not going to show me anything that I can't create listed here. It's only going to show me features that are creatable. Okay, so if I want to digitize kind of an area around this hydrant, I can click on my notes areas. And then what's really nice is you can pan over and zoom in and get really accurate with that little crosshairs. And then as soon as you're right where you want to be, click Add Point. In the old collector, you used to have to click on the screen with your finger, and if you've got fat fingers like me, you could never be too accurate. With this, you can get really nice and accurate, and then just tab over and just click Add Point, Add Point, Add Point, and quickly digitize the feature. So it's a really nice, they did a really nice job, I think, the collector team of this editing experience. All right, so I now...
Why is that like it's submitting, it says in progress, but you're offline?
I'm sorry, I missed
So
it.
you're offline, right? But it's looking like it has some lag time. It says submitting, like it's processing to update. But when you're offline, right? Nothing's getting sent back to the server. Syncing, right?
So what are you looking at that's showing that it's...
So when you just oh yeah.
Yes, I do have autosync on.
Oh, so it's trying. So it's syncing.
It's not syncing yet, but it will every 15 minutes.
So, but as soon as you hit that button, it looks like it says it's submitting. You get the wheel spinning.
Yeah. So when you're making edits in the editor, right? You can do undo, redo. You can tweak that feature however you like. When you're done with that edit, you hit submit, and that'll actually write it to the database. So to prevent you from writing a feature to the database and then changing it, writing to the database, and changing it, writing to the database, changing it, writing to the database, you can actually, it gives you the opportunity to get it exactly how you like it, and then when you're done, you hit submit, and it puts it in the database.
But just local, right?
Just local. It's just saving it. It's like a save.
It's saving, but it's
Yes.
still taking time, like it's an AC
Um,
process.
I don't know if it's the video. It was pretty quick for me. I mean, it's actually pretty painless.
I guess I just got the assumption it was going back to the server.
Not yet. And actually, I'll show you here in a second. It'll go back here. So where did we leave off? So yes. So I went and I digitized the location. I did add points, submitted the feature. Now I'm ready to sync. So to do the synchronization, I actually jumped out of the map for a second, so I'll jump back in. I didn't need to do that. But if I'm ready to synchronize, I just click the sync button, and look, it shows me a preview of the edits I just made. So I can actually go into those and look at them one more time before I hit the sync button and tweak them how I like to tweak them. And then also notice auto sync's enabled, like someone had mentioned, so it's ready to sync however often. And then I can just click the sync button and force the sync to happen right away if I like. I don't have to wait for the auto sync to complete. And when that's done, then I've completed my synchronization. So then I can remove the area. What that'll do is it'll take that offline information and switch it back to referencing the live data. A couple of last things I wanted to show. If you go into your profile, you can actually control the size of the attachments. So in this case, it's set to large. I can make it smaller, medium. I may not want that full res 10 megabyte attachment every time I attach something. I may not need all that data, so I can control the photo size. And then the auto sync settings, you can go under the download and sync button, and then you can tweak how often you want to do it. Or you can turn it off and not have it auto sync at all. Okay, this is still trying to sync. So there's definitely something going on over their network or machine, or that Amazon machine or something. Okay, I got about 5 minutes. Let me get through a couple of slides and then come on up and take questions. And then I'm working all afternoon in the island, so I can talk to you guys however long you want to. So let me just get through a few last slides. So that was our set of demos. We basically did a mini workflow where we set up a distributed collaboration between enterprise and online, and then we took data offline in Pro, took data offline in Collector, synced it up to enterprise, and then that, of course, will be automatically synced up to, eventually up to online, and made available to whoever I want to share it with up there. Okay, what's coming? Pre-planned workflows with deltas. So I showed you pre-planned workflows. Pre-planned workflows with deltas is like an enhancement on top of it for read-only data. It's really an optimization for people who want to have the full extent of their data set in the field for all their workers, and they want to distribute it in an efficient way. It has an advantage over map areas right now in that because it's one way, you never have to ever sync against the feature service. It only syncs the one copy that it's keeping online. So let me show you how that works. It's easier to show you with some pictures. So this is coming. This is not there yet, but it's a work in progress. So say I take the whole map area offline, same as the map areas experience. It'll also take, just like map areas now, it'll take that replica offline from the feature service. It'll create the base map. Then if a mobile guy comes along, he's going to download the replica and the base map. Now notice I didn't generate a specific replica. There's only one replica ever in play for all of this. So if another guy comes along, they're going to take off the replica and the same base map again. Again, one replica involved. Now when a synchronization happens, it happens on the server. The server will import a delta and preserve the delta on the server. So then when that first collector user comes along, or first mobile user comes along, and they call sync, it doesn't hit the feature service at all. It actually just downloads that one delta and imports it. Say there's another event happening on the server, generates a second delta. Then when that second mobile user comes along and they sync, it'll grab the two deltas and download those. Now, if that first guy were to call sync, it would just download the second delta, because it already has the first. So you can see how it's really lightweight on the server. Not only is the create replica, but also the sync replica is only happening on the server. And all those mobile devices, which can be thousands and thousands, are just downloading deltas. The new guy comes along, when he downloads the package, he'll get the base map and he'll get the most up-to-date copy of the data with both deltas. One last thing to say here, if over time those deltas will be purged, if you've got an old replica that hasn't synchronized, doesn't have some of those deltas, then it'll just require you to re-download. So that way you kind of keep your guys from being way too out of sync, plus it keeps you from having to preserve lots of deltas on the server. Does that make sense, you guys? Yeah. All right, what's coming? Replication workflows in ArcGIS Pro. So we want to do this to help users upgrade from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro. We allow the current ArcMap users to take advantage of the new sync capabilities once you go to Pro. So we want to definitely allow you to do that. So that's definitely a path that we want to have you on. We currently have checkout, check-in, and create local copy workflows pretty much covered in Pro. You guys saw the demos that I did today. But the big piece that's missing is enterprise to enterprise syncing. And what I have linked here is a blog post and I have a QR code. I don't know if you guys can scan it or take a picture of it or whatever. You can also take a picture and just go to that URL. Just leave us your feedback. Let us know, what workflows you like to do with Geodatabase replication, what's important to you, and that's valuable for us because we're currently in design mode with that stuff right now.
Two-way sync is on that though?
Yes, two-way sync would have to be part of that eventually. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so a few other links. You may want to take a picture of a couple of these. The first one is a blog post that lists other sessions on enterprise that may be of value. So you can go there if you're interested in learning about enterprise and check those out. There's a ArcGIS online taking data offline demo theater later today. That's also similar type of content as my session. There's a full session on the new collector tomorrow from 1 to 2. there's a session, demo theater on collector, focusing specifically on the high accuracy parts of it. There is a distributed collaboration demo theater Thursday that you can check out. And then this next link, the second link in the page, this is actually a link to some blog articles that we've been writing, that Sarah and the team writes. And if you go to this link and check it out every once in a while, you'll see some really good blogs with some good nuggets of information. So I'd encourage you to kind of check that out. And then the last two links are to the Feature Service REST API. I would recommend checking out the What's New section in REST. It'll go into detail into everything that we add new in every release. And if you're using traditional version data and taking data offline, I highly recommend reading this article as it goes into the details on how all that works. Yeah, sure.
The top one is Thursday at 1 a.m. to 10 a.m. to 11?
Yes, good point. I had a typo. I believe it's 10:30 to 11:30, but I can double check it. Probably missing a 0 on that 1 a.m. 1 a.m. to, that's a long session. Yeah.
I just want to make sure you start at like.
Yeah. Yeah, I missed the 0 there. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. So here's the survey. Apologize for the demos, technical issues. Can't do anything about that, but at least I was able to show you the essence of what.
You're ready for it.
Yeah. Well, always good to have a backup. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks.